Hello, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to the Becoming the Big Me podcast. I'm your host, Djemilah Birnie, and together we will be stepping into our highest potential, exploring all things mind, body, and soul, with just a smidge of business. You're a spiritual badass, soulpreneur, and a warrior for change. You're ready to expand your impact and leave your old self behind, in order to raise your vibration so that you can positively influence your business, your community, and ultimately the world. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Hello, and welcome back to the Becoming the Big Me podcast. I'm your host, Djemilah Birnie, and today I wanted to chat with you guys about the seasons of priorities. In life, we all know that there are seasons of change. There are seasons for everything. There are seasons for growth. There are seasons for expansion. But there are also seasons of priorities. Your priorities are not going to maintain, the exact same level always, right? There's sometimes your priorities are going to be more oriented towards your family. If there's something going on, if you're experiencing something in your family, then maybe your priorities are going to shift towards your family. Other times, your priorities are going to be more towards your business or more towards yourself or more towards another area of your life, right? But your priorities, along with everything else in life, are fluid. Now, something that I would like to make sure that we identify here is the difference between your priorities and your mission. Now, your mission and your purpose, those are your steady rock, right? Like, those are the things that you really measure everything else up to see, does this fit along with my mission? Does this fit along with my overall purpose? Now, that is different than your priorities. Your priorities in each season might be different. Even in your business, there are going to be times where your priorities are going to be different because you're going to be working on different projects. Maybe your priority is setting up the systems in your business so that if there is a season in your life where your priorities need to shift, you are able to take that shift, because you set your priorities to setting up the system so that when your priorities shift, you can, right? So just because your priorities in this season of life shift or are maybe different than your priorities were in the last season, that doesn't mean that your mission needs to shift. That doesn't mean that your purpose is shifting, right? It is okay to allow the priorities to change as the seasons need them to, that is okay. That is the fluidity. That is part of life. That is part of our experience. I don't want you to confuse, your priorities changing based upon the season of life that you are in, with you going off of your path of your purpose. Now, sometimes those can be the same thing, and it's important that you recognize what the difference is so that you can help avoid that from happening, so that when you are in a season of change, when you are in a season where maybe your priorities do need to shift, that's part of life. It is inevitable. There are times where our priorities need to shift. I just have, experienced that myself, where I was in a season where I had to really focus my priorities on my family for a bit. And that was okay because I set up the systems. I have the team to support me. I had been in a season just before that where my priorities were focused on building my team. And so it just so happened that then I had to shift my priorities for a little bit to deal with some stuff with my family. And I was able to do that because I had the systems in place to allow that shift. Right? So there are going to be seasons of priorities. What are you doing to make sure that you have the things in place that allow yourself to be fluid with the shift of priorities? Because it's something that we all know inevitably at some point is going to happen. So what can you do right now before that happens to set up the systems that you need to allow yourself to experience the seasons of priorities, the seasons of change? How can you set yourself up to weather the storm, so to speak, right? What can you do today to set yourself up so that you can, experience all the seasons? And then furthermore, what season are you in? Right? And we want to talk about, how can we ensure that even when we are in the season of change, even when we are in the midst maybe of a storm, in your life, maybe you're in the midst of a storm, but how can you make sure that you stay still seated and grounded on your mission and your purpose? That is when you really need to sit down and you need to take the space for yourself, and you need to revisit, well, one, what is your mission and your purpose? Have you already clearly defined that? If you haven't, then I would highly suggest that you take some time to really get clear, to really sit with yourself and figure out what your mission is and what your purpose is. Why do you have the goals that you have? Like, what is the deeper reason behind them? If you are clear on that mission and that purpose, then in these rocky seasons, when you're in the midst of the storm, you need to sit down and you need to say, okay, this is my mission and my purpose. Where do I need to shift my priorities, where I am still serving my overall mission and my purpose, but I'm also serving the area of my life that needs to be served right now? So you're going to experience these changes. You're going to experience shifts in your priorities. That does not mean that you are off the path. And the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because I wanted to bring awareness to this, because as we talk about all the time on the Becoming the Big Me podcast, clarity and awareness, those are one of your greatest tools. Those are one of the greatest tools on your mission, on your journey of becoming the best version of yourself, on stepping into your big me potential, is that clarity and that awareness. And so if you are in the midst of a storm right now, I want you to revisit your purpose and your mission. And then from there, from that 30,000 foot view, from that area of clarity where you remember what your main purpose and mission is, you can then look at your priorities and decide, where do my priorities need to be right now? And when you take that space and when you look at it from that way, you can really make decisions from a place that's going to serve you long term much better, right? So just remember, your seasons of your priorities are going to shift and they're going to change. But if you are aware of that, you don't have to fear it. You don't have to worry about it, because we all know that it's going to happen. So now that you know that, we have brought that awareness to it, you can make a plan for yourself now, so that if and when it does happen, you know exactly what you need to do. You know what your mission, you know what your purpose is, and you can use that as your guiding light to decide what your priorities need to be during this season of life. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of the Becoming the Big Me podcast. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to leave us a review and share this episode with someone who needs to hear this message. That's how our podcast grows. Are you curious about learning more about harnessing the power of your subconscious mind? Then join the free Rewire Challenge, where we dive deep into the subconscious mind, how it works, and give you some tangible action steps to begin rewiring it to serve you. Go to bit.ly/Rewire Challenge. That's bit.ly/Rewire Challenge. Until next time, I'm your host, Djemilah Birnie, signing out.